Hi everyone, my name is Kayla Angeles, and today my topic is the science behind baking. How many of you guys have baked before? At least attempted to. Many of us have baked before, but some of us don't know that there's an actual science behind it. According to Charlie Bass of the Columbus Dispatch, baking is both a science and an art. He also stated that any slight changes in a recipe, like adding too much baking powder or over mixing a batter, can make the difference between a moist cupcake and hot puck. In any recipe you have, every ingredient has a purpose. For example, first you have your baking soda and baking powder. These are leavening agents but are used in different situations, according to ohmysugarhigh.com. Also by ohmysugarhigh.com, it stated that baking soda is pure sodium bicarbonate, while baking powder includes cream of tartar, which is an acidifying agent, and starch, which is a drying agent. These help baked goods rise. You guys are probably wondering how this happens. Well, when mixed in batter, it makes carbon dioxide bubbles that help the cake to rise. As the cake bakes, the gas bubbles get trapped in the batter, which makes the cake light and fluffy, which we want. Also, there's too much baking powder or baking soda, the bubbles will float to the top and pop, sticking the cake, according to Charlie Bass of the Columbus Dispatch. According to thespreadsheets.com, baking powder and baking soda are not interchangeable, so be sure you have the right product that the recipe calls for. Second, you have your eggs. Eggs help bind the ingredients together. This happens when it's heated. The protein in the egg opens up and helps bind by making the batter into a semi-solid state. It also prevents crumbling and gives a smooth, creamy texture. Third, you have your fats. Fats coats gluten molecules so they can't combine as easily, contributing to the finished product's tenderness. It also contributes to the fluffiness of the final product. When sugar is creamed with fat, small pockets of air form from the sharp edges of the crystals interacting with the fat. These pockets form a finer grain in the finished product. Fats also carry flavors and add a tender mouthfeel. Commonly used baking fats include butter, shortening, coconut oil, and less rarely these days, lard. Fourth, you have your sugar. According to ohmysugarhigh.com, without sugar, flour proteins can join in the baking process and make gluten. Fifth, you have your liquids. According to thespreadsheets.com, liquids help carry flavorings throughout the product, forms gluten bond, and reacts with the starch in the protein for a strong but light structure. It also acts as a steam during baking, acting as a leavening agent and contributing to the tenderness of the final product. 6, you have your salts. According to thespreadsheets.com, salts adds flavor and weight. It straightens gluten. For example, in yeast breads, salt helps moderate the effect of the yeast so the bread doesn't rise too quickly. Lastly, you have your flour. Flour gives the base and structure. There are 2 types of protein in the flour called glutenin and gliadin. When water is added to the flour, the proteins come together and form a new protein called gluten. Later inside the oven, the proteins and starches in the flour turn into a sturdy state. Every ingredient also needs to follow a certain proportion. For example, if you put too much baking powder, the cake can crack, and if you put too little, it will be chewy and dense. According to Charlie Bass of the Columbus Dispatch, combining the dry and wet ingredient puts them to work. The proteins in the flour bond and create gluten, giving the cake its flexibility. Eggs holds the mixture together. Baking powder and baking soda each release carbon dioxide, adding bubbles to the batter, helping it expand. According to Youngstown, any system can function only if all its parts do their job. The same principle applies to baking. Like with everything else, practice makes perfect. Most people follow a recipe when baking. As they get familiar with, they tweak it to get better and better results. But to decide what to tweak, you need to first understand the science behind baking. I hope I gave some insight onto the science behind baking, and I hope you guys enjoyed my speech. Thank you.